Hi, everyone. I am Rejoice on You Matter Consultant podcast. If today is your first day joining our show, please make sure to subscribe to our channel, especially Spotify. And also, we have the special privilege of speaking with Michael today. Michael is the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Bauer, and also the U.S. Small Business Administration 2025 National Explorer. I would love for him to introduce himself as he sees fit, and we'll dive right into the questions. So, Michael, the mic is yours, please.
Thanks, Rejoice. Yeah, so I'm Michael Oletta, the Senior Vice President of Sales, Marketing, and Customer Service at Bauer. I've been with Bauer for over a decade now. Time flies, and I'm happy
Right?
to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for making time to be with us and appreciate that. Let's start with your story. How did your career begin and what led you to Bauer?
So I'll throw you the curveball right away. So I actually went to school for communications, and my first job out of school was for ESPN. So I was in television production for the first few years of my professional life, and growing up, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in television, and so I joined ESPN out of school. And 2 years after I started, I realized that I could be doing bigger and better things. It was a great experience, but ultimately not what my calling was. And so I'm sure we're going to talk more about it, but when we get to the history of Bauer. But um, my father had this company that I grew up as a part of, and um, went to him, and I was actually just looking for a job just to pass the time while I looked for my next move. And that step actually turned into where I am now, as a full-on career, and something I love doing every day.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that great introduction. Did not know that about you. So I learned something new today. ESPN. So you now lead global sales, marketing, and services. What did your path to executive leadership look like? And what lessons did you sort of learn along the way that you can share with us?
Yeah, so we'll get this out of the way early. But working in a family business, um, when you are looking to advance your career, it's a challenge, because I have there's my own expectations, and then there's expectations right from within the family. And so I actually started working in the materials management group at Bauer, and my first job was to clean off old parts that we had lying around, and contacting suppliers to try to get some sort of credit or money back.
Mhm.
And I did that for a little bit of time, and then ultimately made my way into the sales group, where I was covering a specific region. And then I moved over to Asia for a few years to support our growth, or to lead our growth in the region. We'd been in Asia for almost 35 years already, but we wanted to get a little bit more momentum, because we see this opportunity to expand in such a big market. And then I came back around the middle of the pandemic, and I took on just a service role, as vice president of aftermarket and services. And that was its own niche, within the group, and was the complete opposite of the front end of a process and sales, right? It's actually supporting the customer. And then just a few years ago, I had the lucky draw, and now I get to lead the group that takes care of our customers' needs in the beginning of a process, and also now at the end of the process, when we need to make sure they understand that we're there to support them for several years to come. So now it's all under my umbrella, but I like it that way, right? Because there's this level of trust you're able to build, that look, whatever my team sells you, I'm going to be the same answerable person at the end of the day when you receive our equipment.
Amazing, amazing. It sounds like humble beginnings. I love those lessons from the beginning of your career to leading a team within your own legacy in terms of your family legacy and so forth. So thank you for sharing those stories with us. Who or what had the biggest impact on your professional growth and mindset?
So this one's not a surprise, but it's my father. Growing up and watching him and the commitment that he had towards his job and his career, without at the time really understanding what he even did. Um, and then ultimately having the opportunity in college to start to travel around the world with him without even having any interest in the business. He would take me around to different countries and exposed me to different cultures, and that really helped me grow. And overall, his mindset has really continued to push me to be better, because the mindset is, you know, we should acknowledge things that we've achieved, but at the same time, once you get to a certain level, you need to look for ways to get to the next level and then the next level. And so there's no settling in and saying, okay, we're content, we're happy. So, having that balance of celebrating your wins and achievements,
Mhm.
then, going right back to the drawing board to figure out how you're going to make the next step.
Exactly. Exactly. Love that mindset. It definitely puts you on your toes to always sort of strive for new opportunities and creativity. For those who are not familiar and we're ready to get into the story, can you give us a brief story of Bauer and what makes the business so unique in its industry?
Okay, so just to simplify what we do at Bauer is, there are hundreds of parts on an aircraft, and there are parts in certain areas of the aircraft that we deal with. And what I mean by we deal with is our customers, whether they're original equipment manufacturers, airlines, or technical departments for airlines, or third party customers, they're actually doing work with those parts. And our equipment is to do a test on those parts after they're either inspected and repaired before they're sent back to the aircraft. Our equipment in simple terms is simulating that part being back on the aircraft in harsher conditions before it's passed to put back on the aircraft. We were established in 1916. So we're 109 years old.
Wow.
But we started as an electrical contracting company in Hartford. And for a while, we were building industrial water heaters. And what's funny about that is we still have people contact us today, the greater Hartford area, that say, hey, we have a Bauer water heater. Is this the same company? And we say it is. And, we pride ourselves on our customer service, but we can't help you.
Right.
In the 1930s or so, Pratt and Whitney came to us and had a requirement for aerospace
Okay.
project on, and we have been in aerospace ever since. So we've almost been in aerospace 100 years. My grandfather joined the company in 1971 as chief engineer and ended up buying the company in the early 1980s. That's about when my father joined the company right out of school. He was working summers himself while he was in school, and then ultimately came back to the business right after school, and he's been with the business since. And so he's worn all different types of hats. And then, like we talked about a little bit earlier, I'm now in the middle of my 11th year with the company. But even with the history we have, the family history we have, I never thought while I was studying that it'd be something that would be my future.
Exactly, exactly. Very cool. Very cool. From those 19 era and also running it to now. So Bauer has a reputation for reliability and excellence, as you mentioned earlier. How has the company evolved over the years to maintain that position in Connecticut?
So so part of it's evolving, right? Some of it is how can we continue to develop our technology to stay ahead of the game, to stay ahead of the competition. But part of it doesn't change. There's been one constant that we've had, and that's our commitment to our customer service. We really pride ourselves on our customer service, and we really do everything we can to stand above and beyond when it comes to responsiveness and supporting the customer. And so that's actually something we've carried for a really long time. Um, but the things that have changed are any sort of technological developments that are required to stay ahead.
Make sure that's true, very true. And how important is that, the technological
And
developments?
it is because there's always new ways to do things right, and ultimately our customers are looking, not just for reliability but for efficiency, right?
Mm,
And
very
so it's
true.
so it's important for them to, and what they're doing to shorten their test times as best possible. So maybe something that has taken them 8 hours to do can take 4 hours now, right? There's some situations you can't control, but there are
Right.
others you can, and so by us looking at that and staying ahead of the curve, it's an advantageous position to be in for sure.
Exactly. And I completely agree with you. Even with technology or technological advances, the customer service piece is still going to be crucial of how people relate to your products. Michael, how has Bauer, Bauer stay resilient through market shifts, global challenges, and even changing of customer behaviors over the years?
Yeah, so this is the way I think about any small business, and not just Bauer. I think that any small business that wants to continue to succeed needs to be able to adapt and adapt,
Mm.
right? No matter what life throws at you, whether individually or for a company, but especially a small company, you always need to be in a position to adapt to whatever's in your way. And I think we've done that quite well. There's always things we talk about that maybe we're not doing that we think we should be doing. Or I'll just give you an example with the COVID pandemic is a great example where our commercial business went almost to zero,
Wow.
and we at the time doubled down on military business, and
Wow.
overall during that period our business dropped 15%, which is pretty good given the situation. But it's something that we adapted to. We said, okay, we need a new strategy, and this was before most of the lockdowns people had and
Hmm.
all of the different regulations that came out. Um, we decided we needed to head down a different path.
Hmm.
Made that decision, and we did it. Right, it wasn't a let's think about it for 2 months or 3 months. Hey, we need to do it. And then right out of the pandemic, as you start to see things open back up and borders open back up in different countries, then we changed the strategy again. And
Mm.
in some cases it worked well. In other cases, Asia in particular, the region was a little bit slower to come back.
Mm.
But now it's our second largest market after North America. So you need to be agile and continue
That's
to
true.
deal with the challenges that come across.
Amazing, amazing. I love how it seems that you're always a step or two steps ahead of the curve when things are happening to come up with new strategies and move very quickly. While other businesses, or especially small businesses, sometimes may not be able to do that in a pandemic time. What strategies have been the most effective for driving growth during uncertainty or during volatile times?
I think you need to always be sort of what we just talked about. You always need to be thinking about the what ifs, right? You need to have a plan A, but you should also have a plan B and a plan C and maybe even a plan D. And what if this scenario were to happen? How would we approach growth, right? And so I'm not going to reveal the complete secret sauce today, right? But we don't have all of our eggs in one basket, right? We're always thinking about the what ifs were, and besides the what ifs, we're always thinking about, what else, right? Because if things do straighten out and there's not as much volatility in certain things that you talk about, then there's opportunity to develop into new markets or new products, and we're going through that right now. So in addition to that, we have our plan B and our plan C,
Exactly.
and so
And
we'll continue to, again, be versatile and make sure that we're headed in the right direction.
amazing, amazing. I love the concepts of, being strategic, having plan A, B, C, and even D. How do you maintain team cohesion and morale across different cultures, time zones during high stress periods?
Well, so luckily for us, the 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 cultural part for us in terms of our team is not too difficult, because most of our people are in U.S. There are people that are scattered throughout the world, and luckily it's not 100 people that it's. I mean, I don't say luckily, because maybe someday it will be, right?
That's
But for now, there's opportunity to, deal with everybody frequently, right? And have frequent communication and meetings, and talk about the good, talk about the bad, and talk about the ugly, right? And
exactly.
so, sort of what we talked about earlier in this conversation, um, the same as an individual, but with a team, you should always, you should always celebrate wins and achievements, and you should always talk about, maybe why you didn't win something, or why a customer is not happy about a situation. Not every conversation is a great one, um, but you need to keep the communication open, be transparent, get feedback from people, incorporate others' feedback. So it all kind of plays into, uh, keeping things even keel.
I like that. I love the feedback culture, having employees be able to speak up, even if it's not going to be resolved, but it's a good thing to hear them out and sort of understand where they're coming from. So appreciate you sharing that with us. Can you share an example where customer feedback helped you pivot or improve a process that led to growth?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. This is a fun one to answer, because it goes back to our customer service and prioritizing customer service. We have a great global network
Mm,
of service to support our equipment, and and that is necessary, because basically the customer feedback, whenever you're bidding on a project, is, you know tell us about, or share information on, your local service representative, right? And there are some countries or places where, you know in the past, maybe we didn't have a local service representative, because the volume of equipment isn't as high as other regions, right?
right.
But you have to find a way to do something like that, because it's important to the customer, and so ultimately it creates more trust, because ultimately, when a customer has our equipment, we don't have a lot of issues. In fact, that's why we would say, we don't need a lot of service representatives, because you might have an issue with our equipment once every couple of years, right? I mean, maybe a little bit less than that, right? And so if you're going to have a problem once every 3 years, why would you need a local service representative? We can fly there and we can support you. But at the end of the day, if a customer's machine goes down or is having a problem, it disrupts their operation significantly.
Right.
And so for us to show that we're serious about supporting them, we needed to come up with a plan for our service network. And now, we've got people within an hour or two flight from anywhere that we have equipment.
Wow, I like that. I actually love that strategy. Accessibility to solve the problem very quickly is important, like you've mentioned to your customers. So those customer feedback definitely is helping. Michael, I know we all are interested in technology, what's happening, the future of work. It's just the buzzword right now. What trends are you watching that could somehow shape the future of your industry?
Well, I think as far as trends go, it's positive for aviation, just in general, because there are more and more people traveling. There are more and more airlines buying airplanes. Both Boeing and Airbus have major backlogs for aircraft, and so I think the travel demand, is just going to continue to grow, and that's going to create opportunities for us. It's going to create opportunities for our customers, and it'll create opportunities for our suppliers. And then I know that you're going to talk about it soon, but AI is a big deal. We're going to see more and more of that. I heard somebody say just a few days ago, man, and I think it's true, is if if in your company you are not actively using AI or currently working on a way to integrate AI into your company, you're already behind.
Yes, very much. Very much. Even the basic tools. I know some companies are not even considering that. But, you know, as we all know, history sort of repeats itself. If we look back the agricultural age to the industrial revolution to all the revolutions, things are just changing and we have to sort of learn how to adapt to them. So I appreciate that. What advice would you give to emerging leaders aiming to grow their careers while learning through complexity?
First advice is to keep your head down and keep working. I think that, um, in each role that you have, there are expectations of you. And I think you need to do everything you can to exceed those expectations, solicit feedback from people. And if you do want to grow in your career, if you do want to advance, if you do want to, become a leader, let it be known. Don't be shy about it, right? And so you obviously need to achieve the work accolades to continue to climb up the ladder, but ultimately, um, you know, you need to be noticed for
Mm.
your hard work, your creativity, your problem solving, and so it's going to be the people that put in the extra time, that think outside the box, and that are jumping up and down saying, "Hey, pick me," and showing that they can lead a team. Which, by the way, the best way to do that is to utilize all the other knowledge around you, and don't try to carry anything on your back, right? I mean, if you're in a room of people, um, you know, five brains is better than one. Find a way to utilize that to get to the ultimate goal.
Exactly. Excellent. Excellent. I love that. Um, and it's actually connected to the changes of work that we are experiencing. I know we touched base a little bit on the AI. AI is transforming so many companies in terms of how the companies are operating. How is Bauer integrating AI into sales, marketing, or customer service functions in your company?
Yeah, so Bauer, the way that Bauer is doing it now, we're just we're just in the middle of a process where we have technical documentation that we're using AI to basically extract information from there.
Mm.
It's a little bit complicated because we deal with both commercial and military, right? And so we're dealing with commercial right now. Military is a whole different story. There's a whole bunch of rules and regulations that go along with that, and so the starting point is commercial information, and being able to um, use AI to extract information in a period of time that's significantly less than we have people working on that very job today. Uh, but to be clear, it's not to replace a person, to take away certain tasks from someone that are more basic, so that they can focus on the more complex situation.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I agree with you. There's so much complexities that sometimes you don't see when you're doing the basic tasks that you can, automate. That would take away some of that busy work. Some people tend to call it. Exactly. Awesome. So, do you believe AI will shift the role of sales and service professionals? And if so, how can leaders prepare their teams for this type of change?
I think it depends on what type of sales you're in. When we talk about B2B sales, and that's what we are, it still continues to be largely driven by relationships that you have with people.
Mm,
I haven't heard of any situation where AI has developed a great relationship with another human. Or it's impressive, right? It aids in providing information, but at the end of the day, that human to human touch is much more important, much more valuable. Uh, so that's B2B sales, and especially with what we do, I'm not sure if it's a different world for B2C or anything else, but um, I don't think it'll have a big effect on sales professionals. As far as service professionals, um, I think a similar situation to what I told you we're already working on in a different way is that there's information I'm sure that AI would be able to gather quickly for us to support us in solving issues. But at the end of the day, when we need to be hands on and we need to make judgment calls on something, and it's still ultimately a thing that we need to do as employees, as workers. So I think it'll just be a benefit to have AI support what we're doing.
exactly, exactly. And I agree with you. Like, I don't think AI is at the pace of building or, showing empathy to clients or understanding some of their challenges from a human level, like you mentioned. So I definitely agree with you. So that gives a lot.
There are a few great movies out there that you can watch, right? But I agree. We're talking about a lot of things very, very far into the future if they ever become something.
Exactly, exactly. We're here for it. What excites you the most, Michael, and what concerns you about the rapid changes of AI in the global business space?
What excites me is that like we talked about, there are going to be things that we do today that we are not going to have to do, so that we can focus on the bigger picture. Uh,
Mm,
Tasks that are going to support our growth. The biggest concern that I have is that some people might get too dependent on AI.
that's true.
And so I know I won't, but everybody's going to have a choice in whatever they're doing, or however their company or they decide to implement AI into their life. They're going to have a choice to determine, how much they will rely on the technology. And so a little bit of a concern when it comes to that human to human contact, right? But um, you know, to be continued.
Exactly. To be continued. I'm actually very curious about this. Your family has an historical background in the business that was established by your grandfather. What legacy would you want to leave behind for the next people that are going to lead your family's business that you would like to be known for? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So we actually, my grandfather, so he joined in 1971. So there was actually the Bauer family is the family that started the company in 1916. So there was actually another family before my family
Wow.
that was involved for several years, and we've been reminded these are our three core values actually. know your business technically,
Mhm.
take care of your customers, and maintain your integrity at all times.
Mm.
Those were the words of Frank Bauer. Frank Bauer is the son of the gentleman that started Bauer in 1916, but Frank is the one that brought us into aviation. And he would always walk around the facility sharing that with people. I wasn't fortunate enough to work while he was, still there walking around and sharing his stories. But I definitely heard from my family, right? And so we've carried those core values all the way up to today. And like I said, as of 2025, those are our three core values. And so I just hope to continue that.
Mm.
We know our business, and we need to take care of our customers, and no matter what situation we're in, we need to remind ourselves to maintain our integrity. And at the end of the day, if whenever I retire, um, I look back at my career and say, okay, I accomplished these three things, and then to me I'm happy, and hopefully somebody else can carry that on in the future.
Amazing, amazing. I have goosebumps as you're sharing those three important core values of your business, and I'm very impressed. Know your business, treat your customers well, and lead with integrity. Absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much for sharing that and speaking with us today. That's all we have for you. If you have any last minute thoughts you'd like to share with our guests, how can they follow the business? Is there a website, or even reach out to you if they was further would like to collaborate?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for Joyce. I really appreciate you having me on. It was a fun time. Um, really appreciate the opportunity to share our story and what we're up to. We're most active on LinkedIn. So anybody that wants to follow our LinkedIn, just type in Bauer, and hopefully you follow the aviation company and not the hockey company. You'll find us by seeing our big red logo that we have, and we try to post at least once a week some sort of update for everybody to see, and so hopefully we can get some more followers on there to share our journey.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. You've been phenomenal. To our guests also listening, thank you so much for joining in today. If you haven't subscribe, and look out for our next episode. Michael, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.